Hey guys, real quick before we get any farther in the video, I want to say thank you so much to the sponsor of this video, Water Drop, for sending me this awesome filter. And we're going to try it out later in the video when, I don't know, maybe I buy a van? I don't know. This is a spoiler. You're not supposed to see this. So there was actually a lot that went on before we even got to this step in the process. The first step for me in all of this was creating a budget and researching so that I knew the average price of vans in the current market so I didn't get swindled. I decided on a budget of $42,000 for just the vehicle alone, and that I didn't want to go overall, including the build, over the price that I made from selling my last van. So that would be a total of $56,000. The next thing I had to decide was what type of vehicle I wanted, and this time around I knew I wanted something from the big three, Ford, Mercedes, or Ram, and I'll get more into why I chose what I did a little later on in the video. And the third thing I had already been researching and preparing for was insurance, which I had some unexpected problems with, but we'll address that later too. So I spent about 2 months scrolling through Facebook Marketplace and online dealers for a van. I had one locked in for 2 weeks, but the woman started to sketch me out, so that is why we are today at a dealership. I decided that I didn't want to buy from Facebook and rather have the peace of mind that if there was an issue, at least the dealership wouldn't disappear and never be heard of again. So I decided that was worth the few $1,000s it would cost me. This is not my first dealership, however, but I have a good feeling about this van, so I'm taking you with me today, and I'm super intimidated by dealerships, so I'm trying to pump myself up ahead of time and remind myself I know what I'm doing, I know ProMaster so well, and that I'm not going to let anyone pull anything over on me. I'm going to get a great deal today. Is it working? Do I look really confident? So we're about to test drive. They have a lot of vans, which is why I decided to come here. Like, a lot. We're going to test drive 2 Ram ProMasters. He almost got me considering test driving a Ford, but not today. So this is vehicle number 1. And this is vehicle number 2. They're the same thing with 15,000 less miles. So I'm excited to get in there, really try it out. I'm not 100% sure. Honestly, the van from Facebook is still a better deal, but... So I test drove it, checked it out, and loved it. It's so great. We sat down and started going over numbers. The listing online said $39,000, and then the paper he pulled out said $50,000. So welcome to the game of car buying, right? So he gave me a number, but it's a lot higher than what I was hoping for, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. And then while I was sitting there, I noticed a dent on the front of the van I hadn't noticed in my long inspection I had done. So I actually made him go back outside with me, go through everything, and I stopped being shy. I pulled out my checklist that I brought from Project Van Life, the company I work for, and it tells you everything you should check for when buying a car so you don't miss things. The only other thing I found was more rust than expected, but it felt good knowing for sure. But even then, I couldn't get the price lowered to my budget, so I decided to play hard to get and leave. And I literally watched the van drive away and was unsure if I'd made the right choice. The first time he brought out the paper, I was shook. I was like, this van says 38,000 on the internet. How is the total 50,000? So I was like, yeah, we're gonna have to remove some stuff. Basically what I said before I left was I want the warranty basically like cut off for free, basically. And he was like, that's never gonna happen. And I was like, all right, okay. And I left, and not even 10 minutes. And he calls me and goes, so we can, what we can do is we can get 70% off for you, which is a pretty good middle ground if I do say so myself. Moral of the story, if you're buying a van, play hard to get. Play hard to get. Wow. So now we're just gonna get lunch. I'm gonna think it over for a while. I don't know. So I had lunch. I bought this Rocket Power t-shirt, not at the same place. And I kind of decided I'm gonna go buy this van. I called Progressive to get my vehicle changed over. And I actually got my vehicle changed over yesterday with the vehicle I was supposed to get from Facebook, which is the exact same vehicle. Everything's the same. And I call them and they're like, yeah, we don't do those kind of vehicles. And I'm like, I've had a policy with you for 3 years with the same vehicle. What do you mean you don't do that vehicle? Because you do. You've done it for 3 years. And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. I'm sorry. You'll have to do it as a commercial vehicle, not a personal policy. And I'm like, so, and then on the phone I ask, so if I would have gotten in an accident over those 3 years, would you have honored the policy? And he said, I'm not sure, maybe. So you're telling me I paid for insurance for 3 years and you might not have covered if I got in an accident? Hi, this is me from the future who was editing the video and realized that all I did was rant about Progressive. So here's what you need to know about camper van insurance. First off, I thought the best option would be Roamly, which is actually an insurance company meant for van lifers, but they only offer services for people who are on the road max 3 to 5 months, and if you have a professional van build, so they will not cover DIY builds. Next, I went to State Farm. I did a lot of research, asked a lot of people what they were using, and State Farm seemed to be approving a lot of people, so I went in that direction, and they approved me as well. My policy is more than it was when I was with Progressive. However, at least now they're actually covering me, I guess. And then while I'm doing the build, I need to be making sure that I'm keeping great receipts and records of everything that I'm putting in the van. That way, if I ever need to file a claim, I have records of that. And when I'm done, I'll have to take photos of the van for potential claims as well. And the final thing I want to mention, that for a vehicle to be considered an RV, there's actually a few things that have to go into it. It's usually sleeping, cooking, and bathroom facilities, but that varies by company. So I would reach out to who you want to work with as an insurer first, and then ask them what their policy is and figure that out before you decide to go with them. All right, back to the video. This is an anti-Progressive ad. Progressive, I hate you. I hate you. You're the worst. I am exhausted. I'm just excited for tomorrow to come. Gotta think positive, right? The next day, I went to my bank to pick up a cashier's check for the deposit to complete the purchase, and my dad drove me back to the dealership.
On.
No, you're fine, because I'm not going to have volume. This down here is messed up, but I figured I'm going to put it over that anyway, so.
Same size or a little longer?
Same size, it just doesn't feel that way.
What's the wheelbase? Is it
159. That's the same wheelbase, it's just empty. All right. Honestly, this does not feel like my vehicle. Oh gosh. If you're curious, they did not fill up the gas tank. They of course left it with just a smidge of gas in it. Of course. Oh my gosh. I can't look at the screen right now and not, like, this feels so much like deja vu of 3 years ago. Oh my gosh. What have I gotten myself into? There are honestly so many emotions that are going on right now. I think, number one, I feel some buyer's regret, but I don't think no matter what vehicle I would have bought, I would not be able to stop that feeling, a bit of being like, could I have done better? I think I'll always have that feeling. I'll always, especially in the next month as I find more and more things. My dad and I were just walking around. We found another dent on the outside I hadn't caught. There's gonna be things like that that are gonna keep coming up, and I'm going to be like, was this a good choice in vehicle? And I think no matter what vehicle I would have chosen, there's always gonna be a little bit of regret, and there's gonna be that month period or so when you're discovering new things and saying, was this the right choice? But that's just any vehicle that you go for. So, oh my gosh, it's so clean. All right, I think before we drive away, we have a few very important things that we have to do to really make this vehicle mine officially. The last thing that I brought that I just couldn't wait until I got home to put in the van is this handbook for the recently deceased. Seeing Beetlejuice on Broadway was one of my favorite things I did in my last van. And this is like a replica of the book from the show. So I'm going to use this as a tracker for my vehicle, which I'm going to get more into on my next video about maintenance and what I'm going to do to this vehicle on day one, because we're there finally. I've been planning this since February. It is now September. So I hope you can imagine the excitement that I'm feeling right now. So I'm gonna put this in its place and I think we're ready to go. Off the top of my head, I can think of 3 people I know who got into car accidents in their brand new vehicles on the way home, 2 of which were van lifers. So I have no intentions of totaling this vehicle on the way home. Wish me luck, because honestly, I think driving it home has become one of the pieces I'm most anxious about. So I'll see you when I get home. This is my home now. So maybe I am home. I'll see you when I get to my parents' house, you know. So 3 years ago, when I brought my van home for the first time, I was jamming to some Taylor Swift, as I do, and I wasn't really paying attention, and the music was really loud, and my family had a basketball hoop in the driveway, and I hadn't really learned that vans are tall yet, and within the first 5 seconds of having my van home, I got a giant scratch across the top from running underneath the basketball hoop. And yeah, so basically I'm being ultra careful this time, but also I'm super used to driving vans at this point so yeah. But we made it home. We did not crash. We did not total the vehicle, so that's better than some people, right? Like we're already like leaps and bounds ahead of the worst case scenario. So we've got that going for us.
All right, so real quick, let's go over how I chose this vehicle. When it came to picking between Ford, Ram, and Mercedes, that was the hardest part. So here was the pros and cons list that I personally made for each vehicle. Again, I'm not a professional. This is just what I found in my research. The Ram ProMaster has the best turning radius, and the straight sides means it's easier to do a DIY build-in. And here on the East Coast, almost all delivery vehicles from FedEx, UPS, USPS are all ProMasters, which means the parts and repairs are easier to come by. But in my opinion, that also means that these big companies with lots of experience and money to research decided that these were the best options. Now, mind you, they decided they were the best options for delivery and city driving, which leads us to the cons of the ProMaster, which is that it is forward-wheel drive, which means that if you like backcountry camping, this vehicle is most likely to get stuck. And for the Ford Transit, the pros are that it has the average lowest cost of ownership, all-wheel drive, and the Transit 350 has the highest max load weight, which is great when you're building a whole house inside of it. However, my dad has actually driven vans for years professionally and says that the Fords are the ones that give him the most issues mechanically. And finally, Sprinters. They're known for their luxury, they hold their value, it's fuel efficient, and pro builders love them. So many pro builders only build on Sprinters, but they're also the most expensive option, and repairs can be difficult to find mechanics for, and the repairs are also very pricey. So to me, a Sprinter was for bougie people, of which I am not, so that was ruled out easily. But overall, if you're looking to buy a van, acknowledge that if one option was significantly better than the others, we would know that by now, so don't let anyone tell you you made the wrong choice. There really is no such thing. What matters more is each individual vehicle.
It has been quite a day, and now that I have the van, I'm kind of right now working on turning it into a place where I can plan the van build, where I can hang out, where I can even sleep in here. You know, there's no rules to van life of how built out your vehicle has to be to get started. So I brought a blow-up mattress, I brought my cooler with some snacks in it, and I brought this filter by Water Drop, which I am so thankful that they sent to me, because this is something that, like, obviously my water system is not going to be set up in this van for a long time. So having this is going to be able to help me have filtered water on the road, because I am building for the first month at my parents' house, but I'm hoping to then go again west and build in California. So being able to have filtered water without having to have a full setup water system is super awesome. All right, so here it is. Obviously Water Drop understands the aesthetic. Look at we matched today. This actually was not purposeful. If you watch my videos, I always wear this color shirt. It is a water filtration system that has a cute little hole up here that you can pour water in without having to take off the lid. And it's that simple. And I just have a cup and I'm good to go, which honestly makes me question why I even need a complicated system. There were so many times when planning this van build when I was like, maybe I'll just get a Savannah GMC and just, you know, have a very minimal build. And I didn't end up doing it because I'm actually super psyched to do this van build and to, you know, create something incredible. But honestly, it could be as simple as this, having a filtrated system where you know, go into Starbucks, you fill up a cup like this, you pour it in there, and now you have drinkable water. So there's definitely a lot of options for any budget of van life, and I think this is super helpful for something like that. See, look at that, I just created a table. I've got everything in here already. It's so bougie. So yeah, let's review a bit more of the van though. I want to show you around. I can kind of already imagine it together and how I want everything to lay out, which is a little silly because it is a very similar layout to my last van. There will be a big difference in the back because I actually did not want windows originally, and then the dealer who sold me this van actually gave me a really great idea because I told him I didn't want windows because it was like a weak point in New York City. It's an easy spot to break in through. And he was like, well, what if you had like shutters, like wood over it? That way it was like another barrier above it, like little open up, you know? And then I realized that was perfect. It was perfect because I wanted Betty, my cat, to have windows in the van where she could lay in the sun. But I was worried that sleeping next to windows, I would just feel unsafe and like I was next to a giant weak point in the vehicle. So I'm absolutely going to do that. I don't know the specs of how that'll work yet, but I'm really excited for that. She's gonna have her own little ledge and some sunshine, which she'll love. So I know I'm not a huge fan of windows, but that's how I ended up with windows. Besides that, I think the only other major change is going to be the partition door and the color. I actually sent someone a sketch of what I want the new van to look like aesthetically, and they literally just laughed at it. Like, people are stunned when I show it to them. They think it's a little much, but you know, that's me, a little much. So we're gonna roll with it. I think that pretty much sums it up. I bought a van, I did the thing. There's no going back now. So make sure you're following along because the next video is going to be starting off with gutting the van, maintenance, cleaning it, getting it ready. I'm gonna go through every single step. I'm using Van Life Academy by Project Van Life, which is the company I work for, in order to schedule out what I'm creating and how I'm going to be doing this van build. So that's kind of my order of operations, my skeleton for this van build. Besides that, I am just really excited to get going and start this van build. So I hope to see you next time.